Both spiritual bypassing and real growth can feel good, but only one actually changes your life. But before we label something as spiritual bypassing, I think it's important to understand why we do it in the first place. Why do we reach for comfort instead of real growth? If you're new here, I'm Kennedy, and I talk about inner work, conscious living, and asking the deeper questions of life through personal experience, spirituality, and lived wisdom. At the end of this video, I'm going to give you the 3 questions that I use to hold myself accountable and ensure that I am not spiritually bypassing in moments of discomfort. But first, let's discuss what spiritual bypassing is. Spiritual bypassing, simply put, is using spirituality or spiritual tools to avoid and disassociate from negative emotions or difficult experiences in life. It's not that the spiritual concepts are wrong, it really lies in how we use them. For example, someone experiences a loss of a loved one, and instead of sitting with the difficult emotion of grief, they instead say everything happens for a reason. And while that might be true, it skips over the human experience of actually feeling the grief. It replaces the process instead of supporting it. Real growth doesn't ignore the experience, it moves through it. It's being honest about what you feel even when it's uncomfortable. So using the same example from earlier about grief, real growth looks like allowing yourself to sit with it, to feel it, to acknowledge the grief and what that loss meant to you. Real growth is honest, even when it's not peaceful. But here's the part that I don't hear talked about enough, and that is the why. Why do we choose to spiritually bypass in moments where we can transcend a negative experience? And I think that the truth really is that when you have that initial phase, I like to call it the honeymoon phase of your spiritual journey, and you've found a level of clarity and peace and joy that you had not had previously, there is this subconscious intent to protect that joy and protect that peace at all cost. And so any negative experience or uncomfortable emotion that presents itself as a threat, it's going to trigger this desire to want to protect yourself from that negative experience, especially if you have found this clarity and this joy and this peace after a long time of suffering and stress and pain. You want to do everything in your power to protect it. The only challenge with that is by avoiding the uncomfortable emotions or the difficult experiences, you really create stagnation within your spiritual journey. I know for myself in the beginning, I was spiritually bypassing 100% because the joy and the peace and the clarity that I had found those first couple of years of my spiritual journey, oh my goodness, I had never experienced it before. And I wanted to do everything in my power to maintain it. And I'd gotten a really surface level education online, lots of YouTube videos of what the spiritual journey meant. A lot of Googling. I hadn't yet had the lived experience to inform me of the deeper processes like the shadow work and integrating the shadow work. I think that the biggest thing that I've learned over the past 7 years is that initial honeymoon phase was helping me build a container. It was helping me build a foundation, sort of like a baseline of clarity and joy and peace. And that baseline was there for me to maintain and for me to return to, but it was not meant for me to avoid the deeper experiences of life. And what I found in my experience is that those uncomfortable emotions and those negative experiences would continue to present themselves in a myriad of different ways until I was willing to say, okay, let me face this. Let me sit with this difficult experience or this uncomfortable emotion in this moment. And that container of joy and peace and clarity that I had built in the beginning of my awakening had expanded to that at that point so that I could feel like, okay, I can hold this moment. I can hold this negative moment. I can hold this grief while also knowing that my birthright is this joy. It is this clarity. It is this peace that I've found, and I will be able to return to it. I love to use the visual example of standing in the ocean, and there are these waves that are coming, and these waves are coming at you, and they're shaking you, but your feet are rooted solidly into the ground, into the sand. So you may shake and you may move back and forth, but you're not going anywhere. It's not letting the water take you. And I think that that is why that container of clarity and joy and peace is there. And I also think that's why people work really hard to protect it. And sometimes that trying to protect it leads itself to spiritual bypassing. Real growth, on the other hand, is about facing those negative experiences from a position of, hey, I've created this container of joy and peace and clarity for myself, that I know that I can face this and move through this and return back to my state of joy. I know that I can hold this experience, and I can not only hold it, but I can get curious about what it means for me. I can look at it with the lens of curiosity and also clarity, and I can take away from it the wisdom that I'm meant to gain, and I can complete the cycle. So I think that there is a level of confidence that you build so that when you face a moment, a difficult moment, and you have the opportunity to spiritually bypass, you choose to, in confidence, say, no, I'm going to be with this uncomfortable moment. So there are 3 questions that I ask myself to hold myself accountable and ensure that I'm not spiritually bypassing. The first one is, am I using my spiritual tools out of curiosity and to receive wisdom about this experience, or am I using it to predict an outcome or to feel settled without all the information? The second question I ask myself is my perception of this experience holding space for both the shadow and the light? And then the last question is the action that I'm about to take going to keep me temporarily comfortable, or is it moving me forward in my evolution? So I ask myself those questions when I kind of get stuck and I'm like, okay, I don't want to be caught up in negative emotions over an extended period of time, but I also want to hold space for what's coming up. And I want to be able to be with it. Because the truth is, your spirituality isn't meant to replace your human lived experience. It's meant to help you deepen it. It's meant to help you feel more confident and secure in it. It's meant to give you a foundation and a baseline that you can always return to, irregardless of any situations that you may face in life. I'd love to hear from you how you avoid spiritual bypassing in your spiritual journey. Drop it down in the comments. If you have a question about spiritual bypassing versus real growth, or you want me to elaborate on anything, please feel free to drop it down in the comments. Next week, I'll be sharing my experience with past life regression, how it completely redefined inner work, the authority that I have over my life, as well as revealed the thread of connection and love that follows us across lifetimes. So subscribe if you haven't already to the channel, and I will see you next Tuesday.